Hello everyone, this is EB the Original Master here, and welcome back to a new video game review. And today I'll be reviewing Kirby and the Forgotten Land for the Nintendo Switch, released on March 25th, 2022. Now, this game is really important to me is because this is actually the first time I have ever played a Kirby game. Is because I wasn't really into the franchise at at the time of this recording is because I was mostly a Mario fan because Mario was pretty much the only video game franchise I really cared about at the time. But thanks to some friends online and on Discord, I've finally gotten into another Nintendo franchise, which is Kirby. So this game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, was released to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Kirby franchise, which was on April 27th, 2022 in Japan, and this is the very first 3D mainline Kirby game. Kirby has tackled 3D elements before in previous games, such as Kirby's 3D Blast on the 3DS, but that was just experimental games. But Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the true first 3D Kirby game in the series. Now, in this game, Kirby and Bandana Waddle Dee are transported into this weird realm from a storm cloud, which takes them to the Forgotten Land, which is the name of the location of this game, where Kirby stumbles upon this little blue creature by the name of Elfilin, who explains to Kirby that the Waddle Dees has been kidnapped and he needs Kirby's help to rescue them for something important, I guess. And that's pretty much all the story that we get up until this point, until much later in the game. So, in Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Kirby controls the way how he does in any other Kirby games. He can inhale his enemies and use their powers as copy abilities, which are the power ups in Kirby, first debuting in Kirby's Adventure on the NES. And I have to say that the copy abilities were pretty cool in this game. There are a total of 12 copy abilities because since this is the first 3D Kirby game, instead of the developers, HAL Laboratory, just picking random copy abilities, they basically pick some of the basic ones that will best fit in the 3D plane. And those copy abilities consist of the sword ability, which Kirby dons a green cap and a sword, and he swings his sword around to attack enemies. There's Bomb, where Kirby can throw lobs of bombs to blow up his enemies. There is the Cutter ability, which has Kirby throwing these boomerang-like projectiles to defeat his foes. There's Tornado, which Kirby turns into a tornado if he inhales this circular spinning enemy. Yes, I'm not familiar with all of the Kirby enemy names, so if I do screw up their names, then that's fine. It's because I only know a few of the Kirby enemies, not all of them, so I'm going to do the best I can with this review. There's the Needle ability, which Kirby can turn into a giant spike ball if he rolls around through terrain. So yeah, you can actually roll around with the Needle ability, which Kirby can stick to enemies, and once you release the attack button, Kirby can release the enemies and the objects out to cause a much bigger attack. There's also the hammer ability, which Kirby has a hammer and he starts smashing enemies with it. There's Crash, which is a one-time ability where Kirby wears this helmet, and if you hold down the Y button, Kirby can charge up and cause a nuclear explosion, which defeats all the nearby enemies. There's Fire, where Kirby can breathe out fire from his mouth. There's Ice, which is very similar to fire, but instead of fire, you breathe out ice. You can freeze enemies, which is very helpful. There's the Sleep ability, which will regain Kirby's health, which is another one-time usage ability. And there are two new abilities, which is the Drill, where Kirby can drill underground and cause these giant earthquakes from beneath him, which can defeat nearby enemies. And there's Ranger, which Kirby carries around a gun and he fires enemies with his gun. And you can also charge up your gun attack by holding down the attack button. Now, what's cool about Kirby in the Forgotten Land is that there are blueprints that you can find throughout the levels, which Kirby can evolve those copy abilities. So, but the copy abilities cannot be involved unless you collect rare stones, which are found in the Treasure Road levels of the game, which are scattered around the world map of Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which are these mini challenge levels based off of the copy abilities and the Mouthful mode abilities, which I will get to in a second here, the Mouthful mode. And these challenges are actually pretty darn fun. They are difficult at times due to their star ranking, but you can actually clear those Treasure Road missions if you are really good at it. Now, additional to the Treasure Road missions are the target times, which you must clear the Treasure Road levels under a specific time so you can earn 50 coins, which is a neat little added challenge for those hardcore Kirby players. Now let's talk about the Mouthful mode abilities, which is the new gimmick of Kirby in the Forgotten Land, where Kirby inhales these larger objects that he cannot fit into his mouth, and it will grant Kirby new abilities. There's the car mouth, which Kirby inhales a car and can zoom around the levels and whatnot. There's cone mouth, where Kirby inhales a traffic cone, where he can spike down onto the ground to cause the earth to explode, and he can find goodies underneath the ground, such as coins, capsules, and whatnot, which I will get to in a bit. There's the pipe mouth ability, where Kirby inhales a giant pipe, where he rolls down on these ramps, and if you hit the jump button, Kirby will fling himself into the air and crash through walls. There's ring mouth. There's also stair mouth, and I'll bring up one more, light bulb mouth. So those are some of the Mouthful mode abilities in Kirby in the Forgotten Land that you can play around with. As you guys can tell that I haven't pointed out all of them is because I don't want you guys to figure out them on your own whenever you can get a chance to. Alright, so the capsules are another collectible in Kirby in the Forgotten Land, which are scattered throughout the levels. There are a total of 4 volumes of these capsules, which are required for 100% completion. So they are scattered around the levels, and once you've collected those capsules in those levels, you can actually unlock these gotcha machines, which are these little machines that you can find in Waddle Dee Town, which is the hub world of Kirby in the Forgotten Land, where you can play through activities such as the fast food minigame, where Kirby feeds a bunch of Waddle Dees burgers, drinks, and this car mouth cake. There's also Tilt and Roll Kirby, which is another minigame in Waddle Dee Town, where you have to tilt your Nintendo Switch console to guide a Kirby ball into these holes. There's a fishing minigame in the Waddle Dee Town where Kirby fishes, and you have to press these corresponding buttons, and depending how big the fish you collect, you'll earn a lot of coins. There's also a cinema where you can watch the cutscenes, a Coliseum, which is the game's arena mode, where you have to fight a gauntlet of bosses in the game, and there are 3 difficulties: the Meta Knight Cup, the Ultimate Cup, and the Ultimate Cup Z, which is the hardest difficulty, where you fight the true final boss of Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And there's also these little post password codes that you can find throughout Waddle Dee Town, in which it will give you a code that you give to the Waddle Dee delivery man, which, if you type in the code, you'll get these presents that will reward you either coins, healing items, or rare stones, which is pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this review by talking about the bosses in this game, and this is where the game gets really interesting. Is that the bosses are actually lots of fun. So there's Gorimondo, There's Tropic Woods. There's Clowerline. There's King Dedede. You fight King Dedede in World 4, which is a pretty cool boss. I really did like King Dedede's fight in this game, where he chases Kirby with his hammer and he tries to swing you around with it. There's Silly Dillo. You fight King Dedede again in World 6, which is the Wasteland world. And finally, you fight Fecto Elfilis, which is Elfilin and Fecto Forgo's combining to create the true form of Fecto Forgo, which is Fecto Elfilis. Now, there were lots of controversy throughout this game about Elfilin being a villain in this game, and it turns out that wasn't the case. It's because that Elfilin was just part of the main final boss of the game. He wasn't the main antagonist of the game because he was actually helping Kirby throughout his adventure in Kirby in the Forgotten Land. Alright, I think that's all I'm going to say about this game, is because I don't want to spoil too much. Well, I kind of did with the final boss, but this game has been out for a month, so I really don't care about spoilers at this point. But if you guys want to avoid spoilers, I highly suggest you do not click on this review unless you have played Kirby in the Forgotten Land and got a hang of it. So yeah, for this game being Kirby's first 3D outing and my very first Kirby game, I had a really fun time with this game, and that's why I'm going to give Kirby in the Forgotten Land, I'll probably give it a perfect 10. Is because this was a really fun game, and I can't wait to play through the other Kirby games in the future. It's because I do plan on getting the other Kirby games later down the line, mainly the modern games like Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Kirby Triple Deluxe, Kirby Star Allies, Kirby Planet Robobot. I will be getting those games later down the line in the future as birthday presents and whatnot if I get a chance to get them. Alright, you guys, that is my review on Kirby in the Forgotten Land on the Nintendo Switch. If you guys have played through this game, I would like to hear your opinions down in the comments below. With that said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time with another video game review.